Welcome to Sex Talk Radio, a podcast that explores kink and sex through candid and curious conversations. Join me and expert guests in exploring taboos and unpacking what it means to be kink and sex positive. Recently launched is the Sexy Society. This is an online digital community for women and non-binary people to connect, explore, and learn. It is free through the rest of the year. You can learn more by going to sexysociety.com. That's SEGGSY society.com. Today's episode of Sex Talk Radio is sponsored by the HUD app. HUD is changing the face of casual dating by offering an alternative and empowered approach to commitment-free dating. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk, that's HUDAPP.com/SEGGS talk for a week on me. A quick note, the HUD app is available on both iOS and Android and is available to users 18 and over. Well, welcome. Hello. I'm super glad you're here. I was dabbling with the idea of this podcast last year and was seeing this guy, and he was like, you've got to listen to this fucking episode. This chick, Aella, is really fucking cool. And I'd never watched the Lex Fridman podcast before or listened to it. And yeah, you just really impressed me and blew my mind. And like, it was just so refreshing to see somebody so confident and intellectual and in the sex space. And I was just listening to your podcast this morning, and you said something about like trying to like toe the line of being like the intellectual titty girl. And I was like, I fucking love this. This is the stretch, because it's like, that's something I've navigated. And this is like really wanting to be taken very seriously, like as a business owner and a founder and an intellectual. And also like, I want to talk about kinky, exciting sex and fun shit. And yeah, I would love for you to just share more about, give a little intro about yourself and your life, and we can kind of bop around.
I'm Aella. I do sex work. I've done sex work for about 10 years, of varying forms, and I do a lot of research and surveys online, which is like slowly grown into something much bigger than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
And I also write about sex, write about my research, write about how to have sex.
Yes. What is the website for that again?
Knowingless.com.
Yeah. Okay. I got your email last night, and I was reading it walking my dog, and I was like, oh, this is fucking good.
Oh, the
like,
how to have sex one?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Thanks.
Do you want to talk about that series?
Yeah, I'm starting a series which is like education on how to have sex more gooder.
Good.
Which is like actually like really difficult because sex is so personal. And like
right,
things that people like vary so widely. I mean, this is what I study, fetishes. It's just, and even outside of fetishes, like things that we consider normal sexual habits, there's like really high variance.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to find commonalities. But I'm trying.
Well, and it's really important to you to do it from this like scientific angle. So, but then also to communicate like, this is personal, and I'm seeing themes and patterns, and I've had sex with a lot of people, so.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you can't get away from the personal thing. Like, ultimately, it's like your psychology meets somebody else's psychology, and you're like, what are other people doing that's working for me? And you can hope that you're similar to other women, and I think that I am in some ways. Like, I don't know, did you resonate with?
Yes. I mean, as very much like an in my head person. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could pull it up, but it's like the way that you articulated how women can often be in their heads, and that if we're kind of like, oh, like, stop going down on me, and the guy's like, okay, and it's like buckles it up and changes patterns, it's like creating this narrative that we're still like controlling or running the show. I'm not going to do this any fucking justice.
No,
you should explain it. But because I like a little bit of firm dominance of just like kind of like, I've got you, you're safe. I want to make the moves in a way as like a more submissive person in general. And so when that's happening, I'm able to kind of make that switch from brain to body.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Body?
Like the sex body?
Yes.
Yeah. Sex body and manager brain?
Yes. Yes.
Shut off the manager brain.
You are just very smart.
And I like I think like the whole, liberal thing about like consent and here's the clitoris, and I think this is good. But I think like they're sort of missing a piece of like by doing so many sort of like top-down rules about this. I think it sort of misses the fact that like you need a lot of really instinctual stuff in order to lose yourself in sex. But I'm curious though, because like I wrote my definition of good sex, which is something like losing yourself in the experience. And I'm like, does this ring true for you, or are there more elements?
Good sex for me is being really fucking present, I've found. And not necessarily present and in my head, but just this like heightened ethereal presence. And I struggled to achieve that with super casual partners or one night stands, whereas with longer term partnerships, I feel like I can get more comfortable in that getting lost in the sex.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, I feel like sex gets the best at the 6th time.
Ooh, okay, I like
it's
this.
like there's a
Have you done a survey on the time?
yeah, this is just my
Okay.
But
Curious.
There's like novelty is exciting. You know, you doesn't have to be good sex
Addicted
at the
to novelty.
first time. Yeah. Like this is why escorting was great for me because like I would see a guy, a client, I might not even be that attracted to him, but like because it was like a novel partner, my vagina would light up. It's just like new person. Which is fine.
I'm turned on by the newness and sometimes a little bit of the danger
of a person
like,
you don't know very
yes,
well.
yes, it's a kink.
Yeah.
Sketchy one, but it's fun.
Well, you know.
Yeah. Okay, the 6th time. I like
Because
that.
you have a decreasing amount of novelty with each successive sex, so you have an increasing amount of familiarity. So for me, like time, like roughly number 6 is like when they intersect at the peak.
I love that. Another thing that I was really enjoying hearing you talk about on your podcast that I was listening to was being homeschooled and growing up in that world. And when I was recording my solo episode today, I was homeschooled for like a year when I moved to Alaska when I was 11 because I'd gone from like very alternative hippie Waldorf homeschool to like West Point, or I don't even know what it's called, West Homer Elementary School, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance, and it was like very strict and intense. And I had like grown up in such this alternative, creative way. I would love to learn more about your childhood and homeschooling and your early years.
Well, it sounds like there's a variety of homeschooling. It sounds
Yes.
like you got kind of like the nice hippie.
I got the
version.
hippie, yes. Everyone like dressed in this outfit that you're in, like these beautiful, adorable kindergarten teachers, and I got the wonderful hippie experience.
Yeah, that's nice. I knew another homeschooler in Idaho who like was the hippie homeschooler, and he was so cool.
So not to say that we're similar in that, but what I do think is similar is, just like less structure and rigidity unless you had a lot of rigidity with your homeschooling, but
Relative to public school, no.
Right.
It's hard to hit the level of rigidity that public school has.
Yes. And I feel like it set me up for success with being a very creative alternative thinker, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was, so I very briefly did go to public school for like 3 months when I was 14.
That's kind of a challenging age.
Yeah, so I just got like a little splash and it was complete intense culture shock. But in a variety of ways. But with the schooling specifically, I remember being shocked at how long it took us to do anything. It would take like a full day to learn the amount of school that I could have learned in like an hour or two at home. Because everything was just stretched out and you had to wait and then do a little bit at a time and then wait again and then move. Yeah. And it was like, this is so inefficient. Like basically they're just like burning your day away. They're like, okay, we're just going to make you like a holding pattern.
They're kind of prepping you for a 9 to 5. Like you're going to be miserable half your day and you're going to get most of it done in a like hour or two. And
that sounds so sad.
Yeah, I know.
Which may have explained
I've never worked a 9 to 5.
Yeah, I didn't do well at full-time jobs. Like I did a couple of them before I got into sex work, and I was just like, I remember looking around me like, how is everybody else handling this? Like I feel really upset with this life, but everybody else seems to be like, maybe it is school.
1,000%.
I somehow didn't explicitly think of that. But
yeah,
it's just having the free time. Like as a kid, if you have free time, you just do things.
Yes.
That are great.
And good for your brain and play and nature and yeah. Where did you grow up? What state?
Idaho.
Oh, Idaho. Okay. Cool. Small town or?
Outside of Boise.
Okay.
A half hour.
Nice. And you grew up Christian?
Yep. Calvinist Christian.
What's that sect?
Calvinist is a subcategory that a couple things are different about them. They tend to be a lot stricter, but primarily interested in predestination. So the concept that typically the standard Christian view is like, oh, you accept Jesus into your heart and then he saves you. And it's sort of your choice, like you have to do it. But the Calvinists believe that not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy he saved us. Which is basically means that if you choose to accept God into your heart, this is basically functions as a work. So it must be God choosing who is saved. Because if there's something about
you're more chosen?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we are predestined to be saved.
Interesting. And when did you start to dissect that or break apart from that? Was that in high school? From the
No, it
Christianity?
wasn't until I left, because I didn't know anybody who wasn't Christian. I mean, besides my brief stint in
Okay.
high school, but I didn't really bond with
Like,
anybody
this is
there.
the world.
Yeah, the concept of being outside of Christianity was not a thing. It just hadn't been exemplified by anybody in my peer group at all.
Sure.
And so there's a way in which I believed I was doubting, but my brain wasn't actually doubting because there wasn't actually social affordance to deviate.
Yeah.
Because the entirety of your world is constructed so heavily around this belief set, and the importance of integrating this belief set into yourself is just drilled into you. Like, I mean, there was, for some years we were going to church, 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And so if you lose that, it's like you lose everything that your life is constructed on. So I don't think I was, in hindsight, I don't think I was able to properly think about it until I left home and
Got
went
away.
yeah, I did, again, very briefly a stint in college. And I remember looking around and having some sort of subconscious realization that all these people were living good lives. Like, people were really nice, they were normal, and they were not Christian. And this is, like, people would give lip service to this as Christians, but also would follow it up with, but you can't, like, really trust them. Like, they don't really have a sense of morality. Like, they might act nice, but, like, deep under the surface, like, you're going to sense how un-Christian they are. But I never felt that. And then I would make social bonds with people who weren't Christian. And then after a while, I was like, wait, if I wanted to stop believing in Christianity, I could. This wasn't an explicit thought. This was me hindsight reasoning what was happening.
Sure.
And then eventually I was just like, one day, it was like very fast. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't believe this anymore.
Wow. Yeah, one of the last guests I had on, she made a very quick exit from Christianity, extreme Christianity, to kink. And it's been like a very cool transition. I'll have to send you her episode.
Super, I would like to hear that.
She's very young as well. She's 24 and she's just a little ray of light. And I find kink so fun because you can play around with some of these, like, she's found a lot of healing through it, and I have as well, of like playing out some of these more complex dynamics or traumas in a safe space in a way, and like working through a lot of that. But
yeah, I have heard that people say this about it.
Yeah. So when you left Christianity, did that fracture like relational things with your family or parents or?
Yeah, I mean, things haven't been good. I mean, I still talk to my mom, but my dad's kind of a butthole. But I remember, like, I had a pretty good relationship with my mom. I was like a very good kid.
You were a good Christian girl.
I was a really good. I tried really hard to be good.
Yes.
And I've been very fair. Like, and then I remember after I lost the faith, and then briefly there was like some mix up with money where I thought that my mom had given me a loan when she hadn't. It was like genuinely miscommunication. And so I'd like signed some document, and she got a thing in the mail. I forget what it was, but anyway,
loan or.
Yeah, something like that. It was like financial aid or whatever. It ended up not going through. But I remember I got a phone call from her, and she was like, how could you try and cheat me like that? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you think that I would do that? I've never done anything like that in my life. And she's like, well, I don't know. You're not a Christian anymore. I don't know what you're capable of. And I was like, damn, like in her eyes, like I've become a different person because I no longer.
Because of that decision. So now your morals and your ethics and everything is out the fucking window. What's going to happen next?
That was pretty painful to hear. Yeah.
Sure.
So there's definitely a way in which the relationship is broken because of the loss of faith. But still, I still see her and she's nice to me, which is good.
Good. So were you, when you got to college, had you been like saving yourself for marriage, and like, was that all strong?
Yeah, I was trying really hard. I did have a boyfriend, and we had the whole stupid progression of like, well, what's a sin? Because what's a sin is very important.
How far can we push this?
Exactly.
What's sex?
Extremely horny. So you get very creative with the interpretation of what counts as sex.
Yeah, I hear about like Christian kids having anal because they're like, it's not.
Yeah, it sounds goofy, right? But like when you're a horny teenager, you will take anything.
Yeah.
And
you're like, the Bible, like, this is not just It's a different hole.
Basic. So I would give him blowjobs without opening my mouth. So I would just like keep my jaw shut and like like corn on the cob, honestly. Poor guy.
Oh my God.
He wasn't even that hardcore Christian. I basically like bullied him into.
You're like, I'm horny, I'm Christian, but this is a gray area that I've discovered.
Yeah, the amount of like mental agony is really sad. Like
Yes.
sex is like a really fun thing. I love it. It's so
Same.
super expressive, but like
Playtime. It's like so playful.
yeah, I am so happy to have it in my life.
Yes.
But like
I want to get invited to one of your sex parties.
oh well, maybe we should talk.
Side note, please.
But like to look back and be like the formative years where you're most sexually interested in where you're learning, to have it all so
And your body is
pressed
trying
down.
to fuck. Like as a teenager,
Yeah.
our hormones are, unfortunately, we're trying to procreate at a very, like our bodies are designed to procreate at a very young age. It's raging.
Yeah.
And then it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad and it's evil to even like play into it.
Yeah,
or
you have such
to-
shame associated with it. It's rough.
Yeah. Okay, so you explored the sins and the gray area. And then what was losing your virginity like? How old were you?
I think I was 18, almost 19, I think. And it was shortly before I lost my faith. So I was like in the out thing, and we had been
On
really
your way.
pushing the boundaries for a while with my first boyfriend.
With that boyfriend.
Yeah, I remember it just hurt and I bled a lot, but I was so horny, it didn't matter. I was like, I'll take it, man. Like,
Yeah, I was thinking about losing my virginity today and how I've been talking with guests lately a lot about like our really early age turn on, like exploring eroticism when we're like very young. And I'd be curious if you've done any surveys on this. I think that there's some link to like when I start talking about being turned on as a child, it's not that I like think of pedophilia. It just feels very taboo to talk about that.
Yeah.
But when I start talking about it with guests, everyone's like, oh yeah. Like I remember being turned on or wet or humping things or like at a very young age, like prior to even puberty. And that's how it was for me. I would always pause the movies and the scenes. And like, I just felt a lot of that erotic energy in myself. And, so when I lost my virginity, I mean, I just was so fucking excited because I looked at how happy and pleased the people were in the movies that I'd seen. And then I remember experiencing it and just being like really sad. Like, oh, this is not what I anticipated because I wasn't having an orgasm, you know?
Yeah.
I was 16. Nobody knew what the fuck was going on. And the only context I had until then was it's done when the man comes and it's supposed to just be really this magical, pleasurable experience for me. And I didn't have my first orgasm until I was 19, until I got a toy on my own. And I was like, whoa. And then the two can come together.
Yeah, it's great. The lack of sex education is like it almost seems mythical, but one of the recent times I was visiting Idaho, there's like a friend of the family over who's this like teenage girl, and she was asking about like what was it? It was something like, is sex supposed to be better? Like I didn't orgasm when I had.
She was asking you
like
this?
yeah, she's like, I recently started having sex. I didn't.
Your mom was not around.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, this is like hidden away.
Yeah.
I think she like
You're like the
got
cool
wind
aunt.
that I was like the sex woman.
Yeah.
So she started asking questions. And
I love that.
And I was like, well, I mean, and then I started asking questions like, so like, well, how do you normally come? And she was like, I don't. I'm like, have you tried? And she was like, no. I'm like, have you masturbated? She was like, no. I was like, how many times have you had sex? She's like, once. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. There's a lot to catch you up on here.
Yeah, like just like the amount that she's been sheltered, also very Christian upbringing, the amount that she's been sheltered. In her head, it was like, you're supposed to have sex and it's supposed to be this incredible thing. You're supposed to have like whatever the orgasm thing is.
Yes. And if you haven't watched porn, because I mean, for me, that didn't feel okay to do until like I was much later or much older. And I love watching porn, but like, the only context I had were these movie scenes where the woman was just, if there is a dick inside of her, she's extremely fucking happy and coming. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm hoping to be on the board of this like sex ed community. They're doing kind of like, if the parents opt the kids in, they can take this alternative sex education, like online with these teachers. And they include like kink and consent and like all these other discussions and like pleasure and orgasm, because it's very biological in sex ed, I find.
Yes. Yeah. The psychology is all fucked. And like I wish people would talk more about like kinks are weird. I feel like the liberals are getting a lot of shit for books for kids that are really graphic about like diagrams of blowjobs or sex toys or something. But I'm like, I think that's like, how else do you like, if they're not going to learn about it from there, they're going to learn about it from porn.
Yeah. Right.
Like, what do you?
Well, and I also
expect?
was really self-conscious as a teenager about being really bad about it. I was like, I'm probably really bad at this. I don't have any context. I've never watched it. Like, I was kind of curious to do a good job. I wanted to give a good blowjob, but there's no frame of reference at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you done survey stuff on like young childhood arousal or fantasies?
I do age of onset. So in my big
okay,
kink survey,
okay.
which is the primary data set I'm working from,
Okay.
I ask what's the age of onset for various fetish categories. So when the most interesting thing, so it's a huge data set. I'm slowly working through it. I've glanced at a lot of
Slowly
things.
working through what you've collected. Like,
Yes.
wow.
It's just a massive.
Wow.
It's just fucking massive. But basically my point is that there's so much data. I'm slowly working through it. So there's some things I've glanced at. So I'm talking about like take with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Like I haven't done a huge deep dive yet into that specific section of the data set because it takes a while to do each part.
Sure.
But generally found that so far with many of the fetishes I've looked at, if the age of onset is younger, the resulting fetish is much more extreme. So if you're into bondage and I ask, how old are you when you first started noticing that you liked getting tied up or liked images
Or there was
of
arousal
people?
with it. Okay.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
you say 5 years old, then you're much more likely to mark like I am extremely into this thing as an adult. Whereas if you're like hit maybe 16 or something, like then you're more likely to be like this is like a mild interest.
Sure.
And this is kind of bimodal, which like indicates that there's two different ways that fetishes can hit, and one of them is sort of the innate early thing, and the other is sort of like a conditioned later thing.
Okay. Do you have any of those?
Yes, definitely.
What are they? If you don't mind sharing.
Like, there's actually a couple. So part of the reason I got into fetish research is because I have some deeply fucked up fetishes
Love it. Let's go.
that I was so embarrassed about, and I decided to do surveys to find out how weird I was, and it turns out I'm extremely weird.
Oh.
much weirder than bondage. Yeah.
Oh. Well, but like you mean like you're like if you have the data set of weirdness, you're like still comparatively with all of the data, I'm weird
in the highest quartile.
I love that. I would also love examples if you're comfortable sharing.
I
like some kinky shit.
The really weirdest shit I think I've said it to like 2 people.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to share that.
Yeah. But
anything more than
bondage
bondage?
is hot. I remember being really into bondage when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember being like young and reading Nancy Drew, and Nancy Drew like get tied up by some
wow,
evil men. I'd be like,
yeah. I'm my I would say top one right now is like voyeurism. Like I like to watch how people have sex, and I learned that at the first play party I ever went to, and I was like, oh, this is fucking hot. I'm not
I'm
sure
surprised you didn't watch porn then.
Right, I know.
Porn is watching.
I'm trying to find the correlation. Didn't watch anybody have sex as a child, but yeah, voyeur, being tied up, been kind of switchy lately. So yeah, where I kind of want to talk about the data set and that before we talk about sex work. So I remember you saying, I think it was on Lex Friedman podcast, that you like went viral. Like there was a viral TikTok where that got the initial quantity of all the people that filled out the survey. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it helped do the big boost. But it's filtered out into the internet now. Like if you Google like kink survey, the result is really high.
How many questions or?
There's around 1,100 items.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so the way the survey is designed is such that you don't feel like you're answering that many. But if you did the complete survey, it would be around 1,100.
Okay, but it's not 1,100 questions.
No, so some of them are like check a list of things which if you're into.
Okay.
So each one of those would be considered an item. And there's lots of those. And a lot of them are gated behind other ones. So it's like if you're completely not interested in power dynamics at all, I'm not going to ask you power dynamic questions because it's just you're going to be clicking no to all of them.
Wow.
So you get like it's designed to be as much information as possible that's like as easy as possible.
And relevant to what people are already what they're saying they like already.
Yeah.
And so how did you build that out?
You're about to activate my nerd side. So
I want it. I want it. This is the thing
I have trouble figuring out how much details.
That was also like a really big question because there's so much to it and to you. So
yeah, it was really hard. It was. I did not understand the magnitude of what I was trying to do because first I was like, okay, I can feel myself trying to get excited.
Great.
But first I was like, okay, I want to measure childhood associations with fetishes. And so I was like...
like kind of what we just mentioned?
Yeah, like if you're spanked as a kid, are you more likely to be in a spanking as an adult?
Sure. very curious about
But I'm like,
it.
okay, but you have to ask a whole bunch of demographic questions first, like, what's gender, race, ethnicity, like the standard. And this is like cost on time. So if I'm going to be putting a cost on time anyway, I'm already asking about spanking and I'm already asking about your childhood, I might as well add more questions in, because the more questions you add, the more like efficient the entire data set becomes.
Okay.
Because like with each additional question, you can check the correlations for all of the pre-existing ones.
Wow.
So the incentive to just do it all in one big survey is really high. It's just way more efficient than doing it in a bunch of small surveys.
Sure.
But once you have a large survey, you have a bunch of questions, which is how do you get people to take a survey that's fucking long? It's really huge.
Yeah. How long does it take?
It's 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay. I'm gonna take it today.
I would like to know how.
Late to the party, but
And it gives you like a really good score, actually. The amount of effort I put into making the test robust and giving you some, like really meaningful information.
tangible. Yeah.
It's months of work. But then
Wow.
again, it's like, what kind of fetishes do you pick to include? So I scraped a whole bunch of fetish lists across the internet. I did a bunch of research and I came up with a list of like almost 900 fetishes that you can't ask about 900 fetishes in a survey. You can't ask 900 questions for people doing a scale bar for each one, although that's ideal.
Yeah.
So you have to gate them, and so you have to cluster them. How do you know which fetishes to cluster where? There's so many fetishes. I didn't
And then
even know
what
what they were.
categories are they under?
Yeah, and if you put them into the wrong categories, then you're risking getting bad data, because, like, say, for example, the example I like to use is like wet and messy fetish. People like, rolling around in mud or, food or something. And I'm like, is this a humiliation thing? Do I put it in a humiliation category?
I don't
Is
think
it like a sensory thing?
Yeah.
Is it like just like a generalized like taboo? I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
And so, and it maybe it's different per person. So for each fetish, I had to go and research like the forums, like how are people talking about this? Like, where does it belong? And
go
make
deep
my
in the
best.
Reddits.
It was just agonizing to do this for so many, and then to pick, like, narrow them down.
And you didn't have a ton of other like places to go. Like you really
Yeah, I generated it. So I
did the damn thing.
So the gating wasn't perfect. I put them all in a survey, but this is like mostly okay. Like it's not affecting base rates that much. But if you want to do things like factor analysis,
I don't know what that means.
factor analysis is like, do you know the Big
I'll
Five?
tell you when I don't know. No,
The Big Five Ocean Survey. It says like openness, neuroticism, conscientiousness. It's like a
I've
very
heard
famous.
of this. Yes.
It's a personality test. And it's like maybe the most rigorous one that we know of.
Okay.
But basically what happens is that the way that they developed this test,
Yeah.
they just ask people like hundreds of questions, random shit about personality, anything that they can think of. You just throw it at the wall. And then you run you see how correlated these questions are with each other. Like if you say, oh, I really like parties, you're more likely to answer yes to like, I love being the center of attention, for example. And
Sure.
so you can see these clusters, and then you can make
Okay.
basically spectrums to see like which kinds of spectrums, like, oh, I love being the center of parties, that's the opposite end of a spectrum of correlations with like, I like being alone. So you can see these natural distributions in the
Patterns,
data.
yeah.
And so I want to do this with fetishes to see what are the actual organic fetish correlations, yeah. But in order to do that, you need very even data. You don't need, because if you have any sort of thing introducing an artificial correlation, then it messes it up.
Wow.
So I had to do a separate survey for that. But okay, no, I like talking about it, but it's like
No, I
it's sort of
fucking
gets
love.
me.
I love it.
But basically, I did factor analysis on the initial survey to help, which is not ideal because there's artificial correlations introduced by the gating. But you can pull out like the top ones, and then I pulled out the top ones and then ran it in a separate survey, which they were no gating. It was just a single spectrum question for each one, and now we have the fact that I have an incredible map of fetishes. This it has never existed before to this degree.
So in more kindergarten terms, am I right that like you were testing the data on like kind of the back end of the initial survey to continue just making it stronger and stronger and
basically
clearer?
you're doing
More
like
correlations.
iterating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might look, you might just take a survey and be like, oh, look, I should put a bunch of random fetishes together. I'm like, yo, the amount of work I had to put in to pick those ones to put into the
fact
survey.
that I saw mud correlated to the food and the all the things. And so what was like, do you have a memory or like a catalyst for your the first moment? I'm assuming you were like doing escort stuff at this time where you're like, I want to fucking understand this. Like I want to collect data on this and do this. Because it's you're just very unique in that you just jumped all into something so different. Like
it was kind of gradual. I started out with just surveys in general. I think the very first survey I did was I was a cam girl and I wanted to know what kind of habits make you earn more money. So I just like did a Google form survey.
And who did you send it to
other cam girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a terrible survey. I had no idea how to make
start
surveys.
somewhere.
horrible. I was used to like BuzzFeed, Quizilla surveys.
Sure.
Where it was like, ooh, what's your favorite dress? Ooh, I like pink sparkly. And so I did, and I got the data, and I realized that I was terrible at it. I'm like, I can't actually draw conclusions from this data. And then this started a whole cycle of
and also I've heard you talk about just like refining the way you ask questions and like really being intentional and making them neutral. And so like with that initial Cam Girl survey, what would be like an example of a question?
Oh, I don't remember. This was like 10 years ago. They were just bad. It was like,
or like leading. They were like leading the
like,
person to give a certain answer.
What's your, this is not it, but it was something like, what's your favorite strategy for camming? And it would be like, I like being really aggressive and active, or like, I like letting them come to me. And right, it was just a terrible way to ask questions, because these are like predetermined categories that you're giving people. And like maybe realistically the data is like, maybe everybody really likes being active, but like a subcategory of people like being passive and a subcategory of people are like wild. And then those subcategories,
they're all mixing over.
Yeah. So I was just terrible at it. But so that, and so my process of learning how to do statistics and surveys is just failing. I just have failed so much in so many creative ways.
Totally.
It's hard.
You have to jump into fucking learn. Like at the end of college, I almost decided to like extend my college career to go more entrepreneurial and more business route, because that was how my brain worked. But I was like about to graduate with an international relations degree, and it's like I started a cannabis company out of college, and I just like fucking went in, and it's brutal because you don't know. But it's like it's a more effective way to learn about life. Like I learned by actually doing it, and like having these things happen and learning losing tens of thousands of dollars and sitting in board meetings with like scary men that had decades more of experience. Like I just had to fucking do it. And then now like my nervous system in a meeting like that or doing these things, it's a muscle you flex as you do big, hard things.
Yep.
You've just got to jump in. And I feel like you're really redefining like what somebody's qualifications need to fucking be to do epic shit. Because nobody is, I feel like the more, maybe you could speak to more of the like university-based research on kink and sex stuff.
It's terrible. It's just really bad.
There's also not passion driving it at all.
Yeah, I mean, like the incentives aren't there. It's really difficult to research sex in universities at all, because you have to get ethical review board approval, which they won't do if your survey has a risk of offending anyone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
offending?
Making,
not even harming.
I was on a panel with, a couple months ago with like a bunch of people who are in academics, and it was about the IRB, the International Review, Institutional Review Board. Whoa. The IRB and sex research specifically. And I was the only one coming from academia, and I think the IRB is absolutely insane. Like, the IRB used to make sense when it was like covering like, oh, somebody going to die in your trial, like if you're doing medical stuff. But then I think like in the 90s or something, somebody did die during a trial, and then everybody flipped the fuck out, and then the IRB just got like overblown bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And it is just absolutely absurd. And so from the outside, I'm like, we should clearly abolish the IRB and put a better institution in its place that actually checks for actual harm. Not like, oh, I am triggered reading this question online where I could click the exit button.
Oh, you said that on the panel?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
That's
came
great.
in being like, I feel like I just had, but everybody else was so approving of the IRB. They're like, we really need it. And one of the examples they gave was like, what if you're taking a survey online, or sorry, a survey in person, and the survey's triggering, but we need to make sure that there's like a second person there, because it's possible that the person administering the survey is too associated with the trigger, and they're not going to feel safe going to the person administering it. So you need to pay to have basically a second like go-to safety person present. And I'm like, you're just like inflating the cost of just a survey.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting a little too careful here.
It's just, and so I went in the panel, I was like, maybe we shouldn't have the IRB. And they all looked at me like I was insane. I just think like if you go through academia, you kind of get brainwashed into the way that like research is supposed to work, or like lit reviews. Sure. I've recently discovered the horror of lit reviews, because a professor and a grad student are trying to help, or trying to co-author a paper with me right now.
Amazing.
Well, it's no.
Okay.
I mean, like I'm doing it just to like show that I can, because
Yeah.
people give me shit all the time for like
just
not
gonna
going through
ask.
peer review.
On Twitter?
Yeah,
They talk
constantly. They're like, this is a whore. Why are you trusting her research? That sort of, yeah.
Because you have hundreds of thousands of fucking
Yeah.
data points.
The debate around this is very mind killed. It's
Totally.
people who like know a little bit about statistics and then act like they know a lot more than statistics. It's horrible.
Just a whore that does data. I just like can't. I can't. You should like trademark whore data.
My Twitter bio is whorelord.
Take it back. Take back. whore data surveys.
But then if I need to publish a thing, apparently I need to have a lit review, which is I need to review other literature, pre-existing literature that applies to my data. And I feel
You have to have a history of doing that.
I need to write a bunch of stuff referencing how other literature, the background of literature, how it impacts my research or whatever. Like what's the current landscape of the research around what we're talking about?
Kinks and fetishes.
And one I think
it's trash.
It's nice to do. It's like, sure, I would like to see, but I don't understand why it's necessary to put in a paper that you're publishing. Like my data has nothing to do with pre-existing data. Like it shouldn't. Like why should these have any relationship at all? Like if I'm replicating stuff that was already done and it's not original, that's great. We should be replicating things. Like it's better to have increased the confidence that we have in conclusions. Like so just the people's arguments about it are bad. And also the current state of the research and the stuff that I'm looking at is complete shit. Nobody has researched this stuff due to like the IRB issues. And also there's reasons why it's hard to do because like it's difficult to get good samples into areas like this for no fault of the researcher's own. Like, but it doesn't matter. You have to sort of scrape it out and like act like the current I hope the peer reviewers don't see me saying this. It's just an absolutely absurd, like entire like shenanigans going on around like academic research. It's like, I feel like I went in because I just wanted to know what was going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to ask some people some stuff. I'm going to learn some statistics. We're going to figure out what's going on. And like when I'm touching the academic system, like there's so much shit going on that has nothing to do with figuring out the way the world works at all. And it's horrifying to me.
There's so many gates to actually get the research and the information collected that you want to do. Like there's all these barriers. So no wonder there's not a huge amount of data or
and they're not innovating either. Like
sure.
I have a huge sample because I gave people information about the results at the end of the quiz. People love to
incentivize. Yeah.
Yeah. And like
university, like you want $20?
Right. $20 gift card or grades.
People love to understand their psyche when it comes to kink and sex. They'll be like, I like this thing. I don't know why. Like people will totally do a 40-minute survey if they can understand themselves more.
And I feel like I come from a background in marketing because this is essentially what sex work is. Sex work is marketing. You have to understand the essentials of your audience. How do you get them to click? And so if you take a background in marketing and you take academic research and you put them together, I think this is the efficient way to go. I think there's so much to learn here. And I'm just one person. I haven't even cracked what's possible. But like academia is in the land of like, I'm a professor paying my grad students in gift cards, you know.
What is so your inclination to do this paper is you feel like it's heavily tied to wanting to be, I don't know about taken seriously, but like wanting to do it
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is initiated by, I have a professor friend who I like a lot and he's interested in co-authoring something. I'm like, I'm like down. And it'd be nice to just do it, just to have done it. Although I'm like angry that I have to have done it to be taken seriously.
Sure.
Like this is a terrible system. And I feel like, okay, I'm like, fine, I'll do the terrible system, guys. But like do not take this as tacit approval of the terrible system. We should bring this to the ground. This is horrifying.
So how many people have taken the kink survey?
It depends on how you clean the data, but right now around 630,000.
Holy fuck. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Do you have academics reaching out, curious to look at that data with you or help you with it?
A lot of grad students, less so professors.
Okay.
I think I've gotten the impression I'm kind of controversial in the academic.
I'm sure you are. But yeah, if I were in academia or a grad student, like that's so much to play with, so much information that no fucking buddy else has.
A huge problem with large surveys is that you're worried about like stuff like p hacking. So like let's say you want to find out like what food is the most popular.
Okay.
And so you go out and you ask groups of 10 people on the street, do you like pie? And like 5 people like pie. You ask people, do you like bananas? And like 3 people like bananas. And you keep asking. You ask about 1,000 different foods. And you find one group that says 10 out of 10 of them like pistachios. And then you hold up the 10 out of 10 and you're like, look, pistachios are the most popular food. But realistically, what happened is that if you just ask enough groups of people, you're more likely to just get one that randomly you happen to get a bunch of pistachio lovers. Okay. And then so if you ask enough questions and then you pick the one that like shows the most interesting result and you only show that one, you're basically like acting as though there was less randomness than there actually was. You're like deliberately filtering for only the most the ones that are happening on accident in the most interesting way.
I see.
This is a big part of what led to the replication crisis recently. I don't know if you're familiar, but a lot of the published papers over the last couple decades have turned out to be complete bunk. Like when you try and replicate them, it turns out they're complete fake. And most of it has to do with this. You do some sort of survey, you're testing a thing, except you test 100 things. And then you pick the one that just like by random chance happens to show up. And then you publish the result on that.
It's kind of like wanting the clickbait though. Like, I feel like people that are working on these types of things, and I have no background in any of this, so I'm trying to speak to it the best I can. But, people that are doing this kind of research are always going to have these inherent bias in their own world. And so, like, being able to extract the most exciting, so what, like, part of what I do is like viral social media strategy. So like, we can have these amazing conversations in the studio, but then I know what sounds are going to go. I know what sound bites that you and I exchange are going to go viral and work. And so it's like, it's hard to not think that they would be picking information that's like going to be good for their career
it's explicitly incentivized by academia. Like if you have more citations, you're considered higher status, there's prestige, and you have to be publishing interesting papers.
How about they're about interesting shit?
In order to keep your job, basically. Right. So you're like under pressure. Like if I want to maintain funding, if I want to maintain a job and prestige, I need to be publishing real findings.
The title can't be pie, banana, pistachio, all equally exactly the same.
Yeah, so people don't publish null results. Like if you study something and you say, oh, there's no effect here, people just won't fucking publish that. And so people are like repeatedly doing the same research that other people have done because people considered it too boring to publish. Anyway, this is why I'm starting a journal to deliberately combat this.
Okay.
So we're doing like prediction market papers. So if you make and we're like paying people independently of the interestingness of the results, we're publishing null results.
Okay. Cool.
The whole thing.
And is it going to be in the overarching category of sex stuff? Or
probably focusing on that for now.
Okay.
Since I have a data set, so I can let other people use the data set, so it's easy to start. But anything, hoping to focus on things that are difficult to research in academia. Although any refugees are welcome. That.
I bet you could get like funding. Are you planning to get?
Yeah, we have funding.
Amazing.
Yeah, we have a nonprofit and funding.
Congratulations.
So we're in the stage of
that's very cool.
Yeah, making the first issue.
Research. Amazing. I would love to chat about how you got into sex work and that journey, and I'm sure that will lead back to data.
Well, the sex work part, it was like I was a cam girl. I was working at a factory, which was terrible. Or do not recommend.
I heard that
factory line. Yeah, horrible. And I was like, after that, I was like, fuck, I do not want to work for a boss again in my life. I want to make my own business. I have to get out of this. Yeah. So I was trying a bunch of stuff that wasn't really working because I didn't know anything. I was a homeschooler. And then I started dating this guy I met off OkCupid, and he's like, hey, I do porn. I don't know if I don't know what's going on. But and he was like, you should be, there's this thing called campsites, and we should broadcast together. Like I can, get you some followers because I'm so well known.
Wow.
And in hindsight, I don't know how much of this was true.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
Red flags, but it's okay.
We never camped together.
But we ended
up breaking up, and then but I still had in my head, I was like, I could try doing it by myself, I mean, nobody would watch me, but I could try.
Yeah.
And then I did.
What year was this?
This was, I was 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So 11 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're 31?
Yeah.
I'm 31 too.
Oh, yeah.
You seem older. You're so wise.
Okay.
In a complimentary way. So... Okay, so this was before it kind of like, I feel like blew up, or like was ever...
Camming never really blew up in the same way that OnlyFans did.
Okay.
OnlyFans.
But I feel like I know a lot of girls that were like, yeah, I did camming for a little bit, like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Like, I don't know. I feel like it had its heyday and then...
I mean, it might be age range. Like camming's been going for many years even before I started.
Totally.
It was like, I remember one of the girls in the community had been going for 8 years by the time that I joined.
Wow. But it seemed like you had more success in it than people are able to attain now, maybe.
Well,
just starting
well,
out?
now we have OnlyFans as a competitor.
Right.
So campsites were the live thing, and they did pretty well. I was working pretty hard and eventually started making around $200 an hour, which is pretty good. But also the job is
It's
actually
also a lot of fucking work.
It's really exhausting. It's like a live stage show that has to be original every time. Honestly, I should have gotten paid more for that.
And you're appealing to an audience that, at least in my imagination, most of them are like jacking off, or they're trying to orgasm, or they're in an erotic mode.
Yeah,
many of them.
That's where you get most of the money.
But so then you have to play into this, always anticipating what people are going to need to come or get turned on, or
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But it's like also a juggling thing because like I don't know, it's complicated because with camming, most of your money comes from only a few people. The distribution of like your clients is just really asymmetric.
How do they get notified if you're going to be online?
You can have
Notification.
You can turn it on. But this means that like things are more highly variant. Like if your income is due to 1 to 2 guys, it means that the thing that you need to do is different than the thing another girl might need to do.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It was not. I did not like camming very much.
When I think of you camming, I heard you say like you were doing like mime stuff. So now when I think of you camming, I think of you doing that.
I did a lot of mimes. I even noticed like the mime girl.
Oh my gosh. So you decided to get, and what was you just decided to get really creative to see what the fuck would happen.
Yeah, which I attribute a little bit to being a homeschooler and also a little bit to being fucking weird in general. But
willing to think outside the box, and like it was honestly almost some of your early research too, of like, let's push this and see what I
wanted to have a
learn.
good time. I was just like, if you're sitting here, you might as well like do something that's a lot of it comes from like when you're first starting as a cam girl, you don't have a lot of people who know who you are. Most people come for familiarity reasons or like social proof reasons. So if you don't have that, you're like, I'm sitting in front of a camera that's pointed at me and there's 3 people in my room and one of them says something every 5 minutes. It's really stressful.
Sure. Like, when you're first starting out.
So I was like, well, I guess I need to figure out things that I can do that are interesting that will catch people when they come in. That is I need to be independent of people interacting with me, because most established cam girls, they just basically talk to people the entire time, and that's the content. But in the beginning, you don't have that.
Yeah, you're like, we need another person in the room. What's up, buddy?
Basically. So I mimed. I did a bunch of weird shit.
I love that.
I tried to unicycle in my kitchen, and
oh my gosh. Yeah, I have not. I had an OnlyFans for 2 days. I got bored because I'm such an instant gratification gal that it was the slow burn of like one person subscribing, and I was like, I'm in a rush. I don't know. It takes a lot of patience and commitment, I think, to do OnlyFans or cam girl stuff. Like, man, the friends that I have that have OnlyFans, they work so fucking hard at it, and some of them need to have teams, and it's like, what I've learned about it from a marketing perspective is you have to be creating all of this content for Instagram and like that world, and then this other content for Twitter, but then you still want to be able to unleash and show more and do more on OnlyFans. Like, it's a lot of fucking work in marketing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the market's really saturated. So this is why it's difficult, because you're competing against every other girl who's also elbowing for the same thing. It's really hard.
Yeah.
When I was doing, I did like a summer of very intensive OnlyFans work, and then I burned out and I don't care anymore. But the
Seems
summer,
like a burnout recipe.
it was
for burnout.
I was working like maybe 20 hours a week, which isn't that much, but it's like quite intensive work when you're doing it. Like 20 hours a week of fucking a dildo is a lot of hours of dildo fucking. But most of it wasn't even dildo fucking. Most of it was just marketing. Like the vast majority of my effort.
You're trying to get to people to the dildo fucking video. Yeah. Are you making any OnlyFans content?
Yeah, I still do.
Okay.
It's a little bit less intense than I used to be, so I'm not like super pushing the.
Yeah. Your fans get you when they get you, kind of thing. Like, when you feel inspired.
I mean, I do post pretty regularly, but the push for advertising is a lot less, because most of my attention now is focused on research and doing the journal. That's amazing. And writing about how to have sex for men. So.
Yes. Please teach them. Today's episode of Sex Talk Radio is sponsored by the HUD app. HUD offers an alternative approach to commitment-free dating and is geared towards supporting women in exploring their sexuality and intimacy in a safe way through conversations around consent, healthy communication, and boundary setting. HUD was the first to roll out safety features like auto blur photos and video chat capabilities. I've been using the app for a little while now, and personally, my favorite feature is the bedroom feature, where I can see a glimpse into somebody's bedroom desires. So, for example, it will literally say Thea's bedroom, and then BDSM, bondage, dirty talk, impact play, etc., which makes it that much easier to assess your sexual compatibility with someone. HUD is really future forward in how they're evolving their app, and I'm excited to continue using it for casual dating. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk, that's hudapp.com/SEGGS talk for a week on me. A quick note, the HUD app is available for both iOS and Android and is available to users over 18. What was I going to say? With OnlyFans, do you have people that help? So like something that I'm big on with like, cause I do social media strategy, is like outsourcing people to like at least repost my stuff. Do you have support like taking the same stuff to post on like Reddit and Twitter?
Yeah, I do a lot of the like social media
stuff.
posting.
Yeah.
I will, because like that one doesn't feel that personal. It's just like somebody has to go upload the photo and click post, and like if it's me or if it's somebody else, it feels like not
yeah
not that relevant. So
yeah. So when you first, I would love to hear about like how you grew on Twitter. Were you building audiences on Reddit and Twitter and then got some like viral posts and traction? And I just don't know a lot about how that
I mean,
works.
most of my followers aren't on Twitter. Like, Twitter is one of my least followed platforms. I guess Instagram is worse because I barely use it. But
Yeah,
Reddit and
gal.
FetLife are
okay.
quite big, and TikTok also.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just been on Twitter for a long time. It used to be on like my camgirl Twitter. Like if you go really far back, it'll be me being like, "I'm online now," and like a
That's
bad
so
photo.
cute. On the Aella girl one? Okay.
Yeah, the Aella_girl one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that most of my growth seems to come in spurts through viral things that happen. So my couple months of doing massive OnlyFans marketing, a lot of people were falling over into the Twitter too. Like big podcasts often translate to a lot of Twitter followers. If I say something controversial and people are horrified,
increase
bad incentives here. The Twitter's incentivizing
and then negative
me
tweets. Yeah.
to say insane shit.
Oh my gosh.
People like horror following me for these reasons.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How many followers do you have on FetLife?
260 or something.
Whoa,
1,000?
that's fucking cool.
Are you on FetLife at all?
I have an account, yeah, but I've never. I just kind of poke around my voyeuristic self.
I really
I just look at
FetLife, despite
photos.
the fact they won't let me post surveys without IRB approval, which is absolutely insane. But besides that absurd fact, FetLife is great. Like culturally great. Like there's few places on the internet that are so
post a link to your
tolerant.
survey.
Nope.
Wow,
It's supposed to be IRB approved.
Okay.
To post a link to an internet survey.
on FetLife,
On
which
FetLife.
is this like archaic,
Which you can
weird,
post photos
weird
of you
place,
like cutting yourself and bleeding all over.
Yeah.
They're like, that's fine. Link to survey, not fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully it's easy to find the survey other places, but still.
Yeah, I just like redirect them.
I think FetLife is a bit, and I don't want to speak to it, but like it seems like a really unique funnel for people that have OnlyFans. Like I will find these girls that have hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of followers, and it's like you have a really target market right here. You got really kinky, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because OnlyFans kind of changed the landscape of other websites a lot, including FetLife. So FetLife has a very like, we are pro sex work, we are pro anybody, you can do anything here, post whatever you want. It's very like libertarian. But then OnlyFans happened, and then OnlyFans girls started flooding FetLife really heavily. I've been on FetLife since 2011, so I've been like watching this change.
Right. Many women have their bios to subscribe to their stuff. And I've connected with guys because like I was looking on there to explore playing with like more submissive guys. And the guys were just like really refreshed that I didn't want to like charge them.
Yeah. And it's interesting debate because it's like if you have a bunch of people now on your platform that are incentivized by money, but you are tolerating sex workers, how do you handle like the change in vibe shift? So this is like a debate on FetLife for a while. And eventually they instituted a thing where like on the front page you can click a filter, which makes so you don't see commercial profiles.
And do they scan for a commercial profile if somebody has the link to their OnlyFans?
I think so. I think it's like automated, but you can like do appeals and whatever.
Okay.
And so this is sort of their middle ground. But it's interesting because even with like the most libertarian thing, they still took a little bit of a step.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested in getting into the sex tech space. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I have been really curious about, and this is the first time I've said this, but like replicating, like seeking arrangements or trying to take an alternative take on like sugar dating. And also I'm signing up for it this week for Sext Panther. I'm curious about that method of like really focusing in on creating like a connected way for clients to communicate with sex workers or potentially even just celebrities, like some type of really personal dialogue. Because I think now what's happening is a lot of people have other people running their OnlyFans. So people start getting this inkling that they're not actually communicating with the person that they're receiving photos and videos from. And so I want more fucking women in sex tech. The design of all of these websites is from 30 fucking years ago, it feels like. And it's, all the men are CEOs, the client journey through these like more sex tech products and softwares just suck. Like, I don't know. I want in on it.
How are you going to verify that the women behind the thing are actually doing it? Like live stream?
I mean, it would probably be like one of the third party like photo verification things.
I mean, OnlyFans has that.
Does that not work?
You photo verify to sign up, but
yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know the logistics yet.
Yeah, I think if you could like have some sort of guarantee, then
yeah. And I don't know which direction I want to go yet. I find that a lot of the platforms and software out there feel archaic and masculine, and I think that I'm curious what could be created by a team of women
Sunroom?
And sex workers.
Yeah, Sunroom's the lady.
Yeah. My opinion on them, sorry, Sunroom, is that I find that their marketing is too female, outwardly female. Like I don't. I feel like it's a cool place for like women to go support women.
But you don't think there's many clients on there?
I don't think there's a ton of clients on there, and I personally I've signed up to subscribe to people and didn't find like the user experience to be pleasant at all. It felt confusing. But yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you mentioned, or that was on the podcast from a long time ago. You'd done some work for an app. I don't know if you can talk about that, but
there's been a couple.
It's been a while. Could you see yourself building your own products in any regards like that? Like software or apps or?
Well, there's one thing that I actually have a meeting later today to talk about. We might like try to like.
You don't have to talk if you can't talk about it.
No, I might be fine. I just actually have to think if I can, like how smart it is. Oh, there's
you're up to cool shit. I know that.
More like a passion project, which I don't know if it will translate to money, but because like I am interested in getting men to have more sex and women to enjoy the sex that they have more.
Yes.
And to like find these people to put together.
Yes.
So like with my kink data set, I have an option at the end where you can introduce an email. I strongly recommend it be an anonymous email or not associated with your name. And then at the end, there's going to be a directory of people with corresponding fetishes. So if you have like a rare kink or you want to find something.
At the end, meaning eventually you will have that?
It's at the end of the survey.
That? Oh.
So I have a list of many thousands of emails now with a whole bunch of information associated with their sexual preferences.
Wow.
So this is like a great start for a product, which I'm going to be.
Yes. I mean, what I would like to see more of, and so this is the first time I've ever shared this on the podcast. I'm excited, but I'm nervous. I did a lot of sugar baby dating in the last couple of years, and I had a lot of fucking fun. Like, it was really empowering. I actually learned that it's a kink of mine, like getting payment for sex. After exploring sugar baby dating, I was like, like necessarily want to do this for free. And I had a lot of fun. I have men in my life still that are like mentors that I met through seeking arrangements that are just kind of this like strong, solid mentor daddy energy. And I really reworked a lot of my own stigma around sex work. And I mean, somebody recently called sugar dating like sex work light, which I liked that term because that's kind of what I felt like it was. But I think like I want more people to feel I want more men to feel comfortable paying for sex.
Yeah.
I want men to feel comfortable to disclose that they've paid for sex to someone they've dated, and that person not judge them or write them off as a partner. And I mean, that's like a massive societal shift that I don't feel capable of creating. But I think that, you know, for a man to be able to get his needs met, like, I don't know, there's just a lot to it. But I want to see big shifts happen with sex work and what sex work is. And that's why kind of my idea of an alternative seeking arrangements that felt really like feminine and approachable, like just the user experience on the website, could potentially shift the narrative for women where they might start doing it and going on a date for $300, $400, whatever it might be, and then not even like almost realizing that they're doing sex work, but that it's just this like new form of dating and this exchange. I don't know.
It almost sounds more traditional. It's funny because like as you're talking, like in the back of my mind, I could hear all like the trads on Twitter like screaming in horror, like, no, how could you? But then I'm like,
I don't want to have to pay for it.
But also what you're interesting is actually more traditional. Like in the old world, like it was like men pay for things. They're the source of financial support, and the women basically receive that in exchange for some sort of like sexual dedication. I think it's ancient, man.
It's fucking ancient, and I just feel like there's always an exchange at play. Like, we might be able to look at friends of ours that are in couple dynamics and say, oh, well, he's got the money, she's got the looks, he's got the looks, she's got the... Like, there's these power dynamics at play, or these exchanges that maybe they never say to each other or we would never say to them. But, like, everything feels like a power dynamic to me. And that's what I found really fascinating about doing that. And... yeah, I just want it to be more normalized.
Yeah, I find that I really enjoy escorting is my favorite form of sex work. I just really liked it.
Yeah.
And
it's human.
Like
personal.
There's a lot of like transactional for sex stuff in general, but like the escorting specifically is the thing that feels closest to like a real human connection.
Totally.
And it's for me, I don't know how much this generalizes to other escorts, but like, but when you're saying that, the way that you were talking about sugar baby really resonated. Because I'm like, I really, it makes me feel powerful and sexy, and like actually kind of turns me on a little bit. Like, and there's a way where I get up all in my head over whether it's a good idea to have sex with somebody normally. Like if somebody asks me on a date and I'm like, do I go on a date with you? Like you're going to give me the ick, and then I'm going to have to make a decision over whether or not I'm going to have sex with
like
you.
I feel like you and I are both hustlers. Like I like money. I like to work. Like I like to have stuff in my bank account. So when a guy's like, after doing sugar babying, and then it's like, somebody's like, do you want to go on a date? I'm like, $1,000 would be nice.
Well, yeah, for me, it removes the anxiety of choice, which is I don't like the process of like feeling like it's on me to choose whether or not I'm having sex with someone. It makes me get up in my head about it. It makes me like the entire time I'm having sex, I'm like evaluating like, is the sex good enough for this to be the right choice? How does it reflect on me? What does this mean about me and my place in the world? But if somebody pays me, it just goes out the window.
It's a contract.
I don't have to worry about it.
Like an energetic contract.
It's like it makes me feel
Money,
like
sex.
relaxed, like I can enjoy it. And so I've been able to really enjoy sex with a lot of men I wouldn't have been able to otherwise, like because they paid me.
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience in escorting where you met with the person you didn't have sex with? Like you decided you didn't want to?
Only
and you voiced
once.
That?
And it was somebody who knew me. Like they already knew who I was. But I haven't been quite as public in past. Like I'm like quite public now to a degree where like I wouldn't be shocked if somebody recognized me.
Right.
But it was somebody who.
Or people probably seek you. Do people seek you out? Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I want to see. Which now I'm okay with. But back then I was still processing that. And so somebody came and he's like, turns out I know you. We have a bunch of mutual friends. And then I was like, too weirded out.
Like very personally know you, not from Twitter. Yeah.
Like we had never met, but he was like same circles kind of feel. And now I think I could handle it. But at the time I was like, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
But besides that, no, I've fucked everybody.
Fucking love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a turn on for me. The whole thing, like, I don't know, the taboo nature of it. And I think like with my journey, I've just had to get to a place the last 6 months about being comfortable talking about it. But like most of the people I've had on my show are sex workers. And I'm like, it's now, I think, time for me to be vulnerable and honest about that part of my life, because I'm not ashamed of it. I'm nervous about this big societal projection of stigma and what it means, or family worrying or whatever the fuck it might be. But I have had more pleasant dating on Seeking Arrangements than on any other fucking app, because I get treated by these men who are generally 30s, 40s so well. Let me pick you up, dinner reservation, let's talk about life, like really great conversation. And like I said, now I have some that are just like these important mentors in my life. And it's honestly like where I go to date now at this point. I've gone on just also regular vanilla unpaid dates from people on there, because I'm like, this is just like the archetype of the guy. I love a daddy like that I want to date. But yeah,
Cool. I have a guy I should recommend you. He's on Seeking. Well, you'll have to like send me if you want your profile later, and I can forward it to him.
Is he a daddy dom?
In kind of.
Okay. What's your, I don't know, relationship to power dynamics? Dom, sub, like, are you big into that in your world? Or
I like
in play
power
scenes?
dynamics, but I don't. There's like a kind of power which is like sort of the daddy dom, like kind of baby girl princess thing, and then I don't actually like that.
Oh, okay.
I support. I'm like very pro people into it, but I personally find that I like kind of more like aggressive and
dominant,
less nice. Yeah, I'm like really into CNC.
Firm.
Like I throw orgies, which are CNC.
Yes, I want to talk to you. I'm serious. I know I look innocent. I want to come to your orgies.
Yeah. Ironically, we have a lot of ladies banging down the door to attend those. We have trouble finding.
It's a great
men,
problem
actually.
to have. Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is counter the problem I've ever had in orgies before.
However, let's take a moment to celebrate that is a problem that's being had in the world. Yeah, I'm really ready to go to some new sex parties. The context I have for them in Austin is very much skews to like tantra and like the woo-woo world. And I really want to go to like some more like high-end bougie sex parties wherever.
I'm not sure they exist
high-end
here.
bougie. Yeah, no, not here. I'll fly.
Okay.
I'll travel.
Okay.
Like New York, LA. I'd like to go to Europe. Like, I just would really like to go somewhere where like everyone's super hot, and then we could all fuck.
That's the dream.
Yeah, that's the goal. We're all working towards our orgies being like that. How do you curate those?
CNC?
Or just an orgy? Mochi Melt creates mouth-watering, edible, water-based lubricants that feel like fine art and are designed and formulated in Japan. Imagine savoring the sweetness of honeydew, a refreshing burst of watermelon, or the succulence of strawberries during your most intimate moments. Mochi Melt brings the delectable flavors right to your fingertips, your lips, and every other part of your body. Mochi Melt is beautifully designed and intended to blend seamlessly into your environment. Say goodbye to awkward run-ins with airport security as they dig through your liquids and pull out the embarrassing bottle of drugstore lube. Mochi Melt's beautifully designed bottle demands to be displayed on your nightstand and not tucked away. Let Mochi Melt fit effortlessly into your intimate moments so you can focus on what truly matters, the connection between you and your partner or you and yourself. Get 15% off with the code THEA at mochimelt.com. That's 15% off at mochimelt.com using code THEA, THEA.
Well, I've done things that are orgy-like, orgy-adjacent, or like sometimes a real orgy, and I just don't like them very much. Like what triggered this was I was sitting at an orgy that I had helped organize, and everybody was like fucking in front of me, and I felt no interest. And I was like, the thing that I want is just somebody to just like grab me and start having sex with me. But like in orgy rules, that's bad. That's of course you shouldn't do that. And I was like, okay, I want to go to an orgy where it's the norm.
I kind of like that too.
Where people grab you or they ask.
Yeah, yeah. But like if I would like to look at a group of guys generally and be like, I'm comfortable with
with them in general.
this one, grabbing me at any point.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know, not necessarily. I think I'm being a little vain right now.
It's unclear. Definitely women have a spectrum in regards
Right,
to
like there's
the amount
a-
of men.
Yes, there's a range, but like, yeah, I don't want to have to do the whole fucking weird like dance of like, are we both interested? Do we both want to
Yeah.
that does sound hot to me and appealing to me, but it's also a kink related thing. So, yeah, okay,
Yeah, so someone just grabbing you and having sex with you I would just want that.
sounds hot.
I just want to like have the sex be completely independent of me in a sense. Like I want to be doing whatever I want and like reacting however, but like the sex still happens.
Yeah.
That's my personal.
It's pretty. I mean, some of the things you're saying are all pretty submissive. Like, I don't want to make
Yeah.
the fucking decisions.
Yeah,
Someone
yeah.
Someone fuck me.
I'm definitely
or pay
in the
me, so I know
subsection.
that you're.
But I don't like the like baby because like I feel like a lot of the dom like princess girl sort of reaction is like you're supposed to play into it. You're supposed to be like, yes, I'm trying to be a good girl.
Oh.
Like I'm like pleasing you, Dad. Like I'm like being trained to be obedient. Which again, no shame to people like that. I'm very supportive.
And
if
there's
you're
such a
into it.
range. Like, I just don't like super strict, intense doms, but like, yeah, the dynamics are different with everyone.
Yeah, my personal thing is I
don't wanna be called
that thing
princess.
still feels like it's kind of dependent on my behavior. Like it's asking me to perform the role of a princess, and I just want it to be able to perform like whatever. I just want to be like, I don't feel like having sex right now, and they're like, okay, and they just have sex with me anyway. That's kind of the ideal.
Well, and you kind of like talked into that in your writing last night too, of like when there's too much decision making happening for many women's brains, we'll just say many or a lot, yeah, there's a lot of eroticism tied to like being dominated or being forced upon, or but then you just get into such gray area with assault and consent and sexual assault, and it's
very careful. This is why like at the CNC orgies that I run,
CNC orgies are advanced. Anyone watching, listening, just
we're super careful with those. We have like opening circle. We go over the rules multiple times. We have exercises where people practice respecting the safe word. Like it's still basically the same orgy. You can still say no. It's just the no is like a safe word instead of the word no. And then we have like rules about what you badges about what's allowed. We have like required
badges.
Yeah, so we were bad. So what happens is we have a default consent list. So it's like these are the actions where people might just do to you. Like for example, like make you give them a blowjob. That might happen, but no.
I think you're untapping some of my kinks right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, this is hot. This is hot. That sounds hot.
It is. It's a very hot.
Give you a blowjob.
I love these orgies so much. They're like,
yeah, I'm unlocking things.
And so we have a list of things that are allowed, and
Different color badges would be your.
So
it's like a lot to keep track of.
Well, so the colors are to indicate what gender you're open to. Once you put on a wristband, this means that you are now open for business. If you don't want anybody to aggress, but you just take the wristband off and you're no longer allowed. So this makes it very easy. So if you're like, actually, I'm done now, you just pull it off and people are not allowed to aggress upon you. And then there's like the default consent things people can do to you by default. And then if you have modifications to those, you wear a badge where you write the specifications.
I'm imagining everyone naked with with like a little patch on the chest.
We're actually trying to figure out a better way for the badge.
Yeah,
because, like you don't want to like choke yourself, and so like
it's like a badge that hangs. Like when you're going to a conference,
like a conference badge. Yeah. If you have better, if you
very
end up
Austin,
thinking
it's very Austin.
Yeah. If you have better recommendations for how to do the badge system, let me know if it comes to mind later.
But I'll think about it. How many people went to the last one?
45, I think.
Where was it hosted?
In
like a
SF.
rental?
Typically fly to SF.
These are not Austin. Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to have one in Austin, but it's
a
little harder. It's not quite the flourishing community that we would hope for here.
I know there's a lot of communities that I feel like are all kind of separate. I don't know. Like I've been to like Shrine, which is like a BDSM night here, and I've been to like more Tantra events, but I feel like I'm somewhere in the mix. Like I'm just like kinky, slutty. I don't know. I don't want to attach to any specific grouping. I just want to find like big fun parties. But they're hard to find.
I've recently been going to some of the play parties in Austin. I can, if you don't already know about them, I can.
Yeah, they're probably similar people, but small little world. That's very cool. Well, you're unlocking some. I mean, CNC is something that like I see a lot of on like Instagram and TikTok. Like people will make these like little clickbait videos of like, oh, you think she likes something dirty? Well, CNC, and then that's it. Like these quick little things. But there's no like, I don't really find a lot of context or education out there for it. Because even the way you just articulated it to me, being like grabbed and fucked by somebody, that sounds really hot. Whereas in my mind, CNC was like playing out more like rape fantasies.
Yeah, so our I say CNC is a general umbrella. Our orgies
Okay.
include if you want to fight back or if you don't. So like I was talking about the wristband system, and if you want to fight back, you like put stripes on the band so people know going in that you might be struggling.
More rape fantasy forward.
Yeah.
CNC doesn't inherently mean.
Yeah, it's just
fantasy.
with consensual non-consent. So I'm not like giving you consent to do
Verbally
this, but I might
or-
not like resist.
Right.
Like
Okay.
I might actually quite enjoy it.
Okay.
So we have a spectrum. I'm trying to make it like really inclusive for people who
Yeah.
have different responses.
Because I think I find CNC very appealing, but not like I don't have rape fantasies. But more of the aggression and just
Yeah, like
somebody
being
else
ravaged.
taking
Like,
control.
being
Yes,
taken.
fucking ravage me. That's what I saw in the movies when I was little.
We're getting actually I just ordered a light up like letters. Like you can order marquee letters. So
Yeah.
for Ravage, we're gonna put on
There you go.
the wall for the next one.
Fun. Wow. I'm so glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, be the orgy you want to see in the world.
Yes, be the orgy
I
you
think
see.
everybody should be trying to host orgy events that
So the play parties I've gone to are a certain way, but then is an orgy inherently like when I envision orgy, I envision like a fucking pile. Like there's a lot of people touching a lot of people all at once. Whereas the play parties I've been to are more like couples or triads, like kind of go off and are fucking independently. Is there differentiation?
well, I don't know.
Is orgy a pile of people?
I'm actually not sure about the terms. I've been to a play party that had a pile once, and a lot of like the orgies that I go to, because it's hard to have sex with a lot of people at once. It's just like physically,
Yeah,
pulls the way it's like it's like trying to stick four Legos.
spicy brain. One dick, one.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think orgies do have like a connotation of being more in a pile. But
Yeah, but yours aren't necessarily.
no, I
A
mean,
pile.
I'm not anti-pile. I'm just saying, it's like dick vagina is like hard. You can make a chain.
Okay, totally. I wasn't sure if by you calling it an orgy was different than a play party.
Oh.
So
There's definitely a lot more sex though that happens at mine. Like a lot of play parties I've been to, there's because of the negotiation aspect, sex is much slower to start, and there's more like friction. But like
right.
the last orgy I was at, I got railed by like 12 people in a row. It was
That's
just
hot.
so much sex. Like
Yeah, that's hot. How do you navigate testing with these orgies? Do you require?
we require testing within 6 weeks of the last, unless you have extenuating circumstances like you haven't banged anybody since you got last tested, whatever.
Yeah.
And we've recently switched to validating, so you have to give us your results. So
Validating the test
yeah,
results?
so you have to
Love
show
that.
it to an organizer and
Hell yeah.
he approve you.
Cool. Yes, I'm all about it. Go get tested. Vivint Health in Austin is great.
Oh, interesting. I haven't used that.
Yeah, it's free walk-in. They take you back right away. It's dope.
How soon do you get the test results?
Within 5 to 7 days.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I believe they are funded for HIV testing. So they always will do that when you go in. But it is a fucking awesome experience. Really quick. Yeah. Everyone get tested, please. That's something I've learned is like people that are in sex work or collaborating with other sex workers, everybody in that space is the most tested of anyone in the fucking world.
Yeah.
And so like talking to like more vanilla people or vanilla dating as I call it, like on Bumble, I'm like, oh, you got tested a year ago?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I know it's so ironic because a lot of time when I get internet hate, people like, oh, imagine all the STDs. They hear about the
That's
orgies
always
and
the
they're like,
thing that men
the
wanna-
STD ridden whore. And I'm like, do you not understand? You're not thinking this through.
I actually have the cleanest
What would you
vagina
do?
of anyone.
Yeah, I think like you're much more likely to get an STD from like once I got one that was very easily cured from personal life, not escorting.
Yeah. Same. And when I went to urgent care after being ill for 6 weeks and they were like, oh, that's what that is. The doctor was like, Austin is one of the most heavy, like some of the heaviest STI populations.
Damn.
For chlamydia and gonorrhea. Yeah. Everyone's fucking, but not getting tested apparently.
Yeah. I think it's probably actually, if you're going to like hook up with someone, probably sexually safer to fuck a sex worker.
There you go.
Just to fuck a rando off of Bumble.
Hey, there, that'll be a good soundbite. That one. Well, I really love like I don't know, just your positivity and like neutrality about sex work. What would you say to like, I don't know, a woman who's like curious about it? But what I heard you saying on that other podcast was like a lot of society projects their own fears of the unsafety or the rape or the aggression or dangerous clients or customers. Like there's so much projection on it that it wasn't even until actually I was like doing sugar dating stuff that I was like, oh, this is like, I just had sex and that guy gave me money. Like that was sex work. Like it took me actually doing it to even realize what I was doing and then realize this was not how I had projected it.
Yep.
Like I thought it was going to be dangerous or unsafe for all of these things.
Absolutely.
What would you say to someone?
When I was a cam girl, I remember it was like, we were cam girls, but there was like this cultural knowledge that, oh, you don't fuck your clients. That's kind of bad. You never
like
actually
meet up with a guy that you
shouldn't
talked with.
That was like a little scandalous. And there was like one girl in our group who would go do that, and we were like whispering, like, "Did you know that she's like fucking them?" I'm like, "Oh my god!"
For money,
right? And so even so, there was still like in sex work, there's a stratification, and so there's this stigma. I was like, I had this vague sense that if I have sex for money, like the bad thing is going to happen. I don't know what the bad thing is, but but society
it's big negative energy over.
And then I had sex with my first client, and I remember being like, "What the fuck? This was great. There is no bad energy. I loved this. Every part of this was wonderful, and now I have money." What?
And also, not to say though that bad things do happen, and like I also, in my experience, try to identify like my privilege in the sense that I'm doing this as like I was doing it as a side hustle, not as a full-time job, and and as a white woman, I'm also privileged there. But, in my experience, it was completely different than what I thought it would be, too.
Absolutely. It does depend a lot on your psychology, I think. Like, for example, I have another friend who's an escort, and for years she was escorting and really psychologically suffered from it. Like, she would get home from a thing, and she'd have to, like, scrub her skin down to, like, get the dirty off of her or whatever. So you might
I've heard that about people that work in strip clubs, too. Like, if they're all fucking in it and they love it, and I have a couple friends that do it that are so empowered and embodied in it, it's a different takeaway.
Yeah, it very much depends on your relationship. Though, for what it's worth, this friend that I'm referring to, at some point after a couple of years, she did like some therapy and had a shift, and now she doesn't have the disgust response. Now she's escorting and she likes it.
Disgust response. Wow.
So it's like definitely like some sort of psychological thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think people should feel bad about themselves if they do have that response. It's okay to be like, oh God, this feels dirty and unclean and I don't want to do it. Like respect
don't
that.
do it.
Don't pressure yourself into doing a thing just because you want to be cool.
Yeah. I was terrified the first time I did it. And then after you do something once and then you get your fucking evidence and you go from there. Or you get your, you gauge how you feel about something.
Yeah, I think that, assuming that people have the liberty to do so, I would recommend trying it once and then deciding.
Yeah.
And
totally.
If you feel gross,
doesn't have to be your career path for the next few years. And yeah, I also, the stratification you mentioned of sex workers talking a certain way about, or the cam girls talking about doing sex work, like I even feel this own thing that I'm navigating within myself of like, I feel safe because I'm joking and calling it sex work light. Like I haven't actually done the thing, almost to like that narrative is still within me, my own stigma around it. And I'm working through that.
It's kind of like your sugar babies make a lot less pay than escorts. You charge much less, and part of the reason you're charging less is because of the veneer of like
there's a veneer
date relationship.
Yes.
So like, and the veneer is real, and like you add more veneer, and what do you get? You get normal dating. You add more veneer, and you get a traditional marriage.
But there's still like power dynamics and like these inherent things, and like there's also just this inherent thing. The people that I tell that I'm a feminist will probably cancel me for this, but it's like there is just this inherent nature of men biologically wired to be protectors and providers, and women to, I don't know, be sought after based on like their appearance and their sexual attraction, or however attracted to, I can't talk right now, men being attracted to them. And so like thinking about like caveman time and stuff, there's just this inherent like provider and hot woman, I don't know, I'm fucking this up.
There's like an
But,
ancient
like,
dynamic.
An
There's
ancient
the
dynamic, yes.
provider and the receiver, the baby carrier and the guy who earns the food.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very old. And I don't like it when that's required, but I think that it's like ridiculous to deny that it exists.
It's ridiculous to deny. Exactly. Yes. Thank you. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where when you ask a ton of men if they know anybody that sexually assaulted someone, or if they have, and 99% of men say they don't, it's kind of the same thing with sex work. You could ask a ton of men if they've ever seen a sex worker, and they all say they don't, or their friends don't. But there's a lot of sex workers, and there's a lot of transactions happening, and it's happening.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wish it could be more mainstream and normalized.
Yep. I've seen people who are relatively well-known public figures. I've seen people who I realized later were mutual friends of somebody. I've seen people that showed up at conferences I was at. Like,
oh my gosh.
They're all around you.
In Austin specifically? Or like...
No, I did most of my work in New York and San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
I like, now I don't escort that. I escort for like really high prices and only occasionally for people on the side for fun. Yeah. I really don't need to escort anymore financially, but it's like
kind of a kink though, and it's
I like it.
The wiring of getting paid.
Every once in a while with like a compatible person, I'll be like, okay,
my prices. So were you flying back and forth between New York and San Francisco?
Often
doing escorting work?
Tours. Okay. I was living in New York for a while, and then I was living in San Francisco for a while.
Yeah,
I would go back. Those are the two biggest cities for sex work here.
What were the websites that you would use as an escort?
I mean, there's like Eros and Slixa, but the best one now is Tryst, TRYST.link.
Okay.
Tryst.link. By far, that was blown all the other ones out of the water.
Why?
I think it was like made, I don't know if it was made by sex workers, but it kind of feels like it was.
Cool.
Like on the back end, there's like, there's some of like the internal messages. Like, you as sex
You've been here before.
It's just better. Cause like before it was like, you would have to pay the websites a lot of money to get your ads up. Sometimes absurd amounts. And it can go up to $800 a week.
Jesus Christ.
It's really bad.
To get you on the top of page one, or...
Yeah.
Which is the only way that you would get clients?
Yeah, it depends on the city, but yeah. So it's not great. But this one, you can like sort by, if you're searching for an escort, there's like really good search functions in a way that just hasn't existed before. You can search by like body type and hair color and height and how old they are.
This is like the feminine touch to these sex work related platforms that I'm talking about. Like just these little things. Yeah, I love that.
It's just much better.
Cool.
And I might partially be due to laws, like where you originate, because it's very difficult to successfully run an escort directory.
Yeah,
and so
none of them are based in the U.S.
Right. I think this one I'm talking about is based in Australia, I think.
Okay.
But like some of them were, like for example, Eros, which is a horrible website. Do not use that one. But like if you would submit your profile and update your profile, they would remove any words that were even vaguely sexual. So you couldn't have external links to anything. They had to contact you through the site or just your
those
email.
are probably all based on restrictions in the country.
That's my guess. Yeah.
And
they would like keep like removing photos and denying your. So it's just, and it takes like a long
trying
time
to be
get approved.
extra careful. Yeah, that's some of the research I've been doing on sex tech stuff. Is like it's not even about the idea; it's about like getting the right legal team together to protect you, and probably basing whatever company I may create and then like not here. I think the UK, a lot of websites seems to be based out of the UK in that sector, but yeah. Well, we'll wrap up now. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
I really appreciate your time, and I really admire all the work you're doing. Excited to keep reading and excited for the the sex tips.
And congrats on coming out about sex work.
Thank you. Shit. We did it. I'm honored to do it with you. I'm honored to do it with you here. All right. Thank you, dear.
All right.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Sex Talk Radio. Be sure to connect with us on social media at Sex Talk Radio Podcast and learn more about my free online community at sexysociety.com.